All right, so this is my absolute favorite time of the year when recruits for the upcoming class are starting to make a junior day visits. You've got the events that your schools are going to be hosting, and Oklahoma's going to have a multitude of those over the next couple of months, and you're going to see big time 2026 recruits that Oklahoma really wants to start targeting and eyeing in on coming on campus. One of those guys actually ended up attending the Navy All-American Bowl this past week. And let me tell you, if you're an Oklahoma fan and this guy was not on your radar already, one, he's a 5-star, so he should be on your radar. But two, you're going to want him on your radar after this. So today we got to talk about what achievement he was given at the Navy All-American Bowl. We're going to talk about Oklahoma's chances with this 5-star wide receiver. We're also going to potentially talk about some what this class could look like for Oklahoma at wide receiver. So join the discussion, jump in the comments below, give me your thoughts. If you guys have not already and you're new to the channel, or you're part of the 68% of the people that watch this show, continue to come back but aren't subscribed, help me keep the channel free. Help me out. Hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we're going to talk about somebody we've talked about here on the channel before, but he received some notice over at the Navy All-American Bowl, and I think it's something that we got to talk about. It's going to be Daven Gross. So Daven Gross, remember, he's a 5-star out of Frisco Lone Star. This is the school where Ryder Mix currently resides, the 2026 tight end that's committed to Oklahoma. Also, where the 4-star safety Jordan Deck that Oklahoma is going after plays that as well. But Daven Gross is an interesting prospect because he plays a little bit of running back, but he also plays wide receiver. So super athletic, talented kid. And as you can see, in day 3 of the Navy All-American Bowl game, guys that caught at the wide receiver position some of the rival experts and insiders' eyes. One was a guy by the name of Cortez Mills. If you guys remember him here in the 25 class, Oklahoma ended up having him flip from OU to Nebraska, and that was a wild recruitment that came down to the wire. Ultimately, as you can tell here, lined up right underneath Jamie French, who's a 5-star that committed to Texas. This could have been a guy that possibly made a difference for Oklahoma day one, and that's kind of what I look at for Daven Gross in the 26 class, a guy that potentially could come to Oklahoma and make an immediate impact. So the question is, and the main question, the question everybody wants to know, like, what is Oklahoma's realistic odds for a guy like this? Because if you're Oklahoma, yes, you're going to have to battle a school like Oregon or Texas A&M. He took a visit to Baylor. You would imagine a school like Texas or Tennessee or Penn State would be Oklahoma. Somebody Oklahoma would have to fight for him. So being a 5-star wide receiver, a guy that also has played running back, a guy with this level of talent, it's going to be pretty hard to land. But I think Oklahoma could do it. And here's the reason why. Let me kind of dive into this rabbit hole. You guys can jump in with me, and you guys can let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, whether you think Oklahoma could land a 5-star wide receiver. It'd be nice to see that happen in the Brent Venables era. I think we've seen 5 stars at just about every other position outside of cornerback. Daven Gross, so 6'1", 190 pounds, recruited by Emmett Jones. Emmett Jones, phenomenal recruiter. We all know that. So obviously that tells you they're recruiting him at the wide receiver position. DeMarco Murray, though, you would imagine with him being a running back, would be paired up in this recruitment with Emmett Jones. So if you put out 2 of your most elite recruiters on the offensive side of the ball, that would be incredible. Now, I do look at Daven Gross, though, and although he's listed as a running back, he does play wide receiver. This is the guy that I think for Oklahoma, you get him here. Obviously, I think he's got a really good frame and really good size, being 6'1" and 190 pounds. You see production on both sides of the offensive side of the ball. In 2023, he had 122 rushing attempts for 936 rushing yards and 13 rushing touchdowns. He also had 45 receptions for 860 yards and 9 receiving touchdowns. So this is a guy that I look at and could kind of be like a Swiss Army knife in the offense. Again, why I tell you Daven Gross could make an immediate impact for Oklahoma right away. Kind of like what you saw with Taylor Tatum, right? You know, Taylor Tatum got quite a few snaps this season, even being a true freshman. And even though he made true freshman mistakes, it was a guy that was just too talented to keep off the field. Daven Gross, I think, is going to be in that level of capability for Oklahoma. Now, since you already have Ryder Mix committed, I think a lot of people favor Oklahoma for the 4-star safety Jordan Deck. Having two potential of his teammates in your back pocket to kind of help you recruit a guy like Daven Gross to Oklahoma, I think is just too good. I think it's something that it's too easy to not overlook at this point. And I think it would heavily lean a guy like Daven Gross to come to Oklahoma. Now, obviously, he still has to get back on campus. He hasn't been on campus, it looks like, since March 8th of last year. Of course, there might not be a visit that hasn't been logged yet, so maybe he has been on campus 2 or 3 times at this point. But there's only been one that's been logged. So ultimately, the goal would be to get him back on campus here in the next couple of weeks or the next couple of months during one of these junior days, and really get him loving the campus or the campus atmosphere, and really just let Emmett Jones do his work. And Emmett Jones has done a fairly good job to this point at recruiting the wide receiver position. And if he could land a guy like Daven Gross, that would just be the cherry on top of what he's already done so far. Now, kind of looking at the rest of this 2026 class, right? Who's Oklahoma going to go target? Like, how big is the wide receiver spot going to be? I look at it and say maybe 3 or 4 guys, right? Maybe 3 or 4. I would imagine Oklahoma's still going to want to take a couple of experienced dudes out of the portal that have some good production. I think you want to pair that up with some of the younger guys. Mason James is a target out of Norman North. I think everybody's pretty well familiar with him at this point. 5'11", 170 pounds, really good skill set. A guy that's fast, is being recruited pretty heavily, though, by the likes of an Alabama. So if you're Oklahoma, you've got to kind of keep an eye out for that. And I would expect Mason James' recruitment to definitely go in a little bit past the spring, maybe towards the beginning of summer. Having a guy like Jaden O'Neal, though, already committed in your class, I think that helps, because both Daven Gross and Mason James are targets that, Jaden O'Neal is going to want to play with, have in his class. And I think having a guy like of his talent and his stature, I think is just another cherry on top for Oklahoma. Also, you have Aljor Miles, the 6'2", 200-pound wide receiver. We've talked about him quite a bit out of Kaufman, Texas. Oklahoma was one of his first offers. Only has 10 so far. I think this is a guy that, later in his recruitment, he'll probably start to pick up a couple more offers, but a guy that's been productive. He ran a 53.04 on the 400, long jump to 23. So obviously, he plays in the other sports this past season. 48 receptions, 836 yards, 9 receiving touchdowns. He's just going to continue to stack that on there. He's a 3-star wide receiver. Like I said, he's got the size. He's got the frame. This would be an incredible addition to the class. One that's kind of like a Manny choice, per se, where it's probably going to fly under the radar until late in the cycle when people decide, I didn't get what I thought I needed at the wide receiver position, and I need to go flip somebody. And then lastly, I look at a guy like Brock Boyd, currently committed to the TCU Horned Frogs, 6'1", 165 pounds, but he goes to South Lake Carroll High School. The important thing here to understand is Jacob Jordan is from South Lake High School. Jacob Jordan walked on at the program at Oklahoma to play for a guy like Emmett Jones. Emmett Jones has strong roots in this high school. So, although Brock Boyd is currently committed to Malcolm Kelly and the TCU Horned Frogs, if Oklahoma decided they needed another wide receiver, or they wanted to take on a 4th guy or pivot to somebody else, I would look at Brock Boyd as somebody that Oklahoma would really heavily target and someone that they could potentially flip. And again, this is a guy that's been on campus for Oklahoma twice. Obviously, the smaller Texas schools, though, they're going to be hard to beat. Texas Tech, TCU, SMU, they're all going to be in a recruitment like this, but it's one that I think Emmett Jones, especially with his connections and his roots, I think could definitely go out there and try to flip. So, Sooner Nation, I want to hear from y'all. Join the discussion. Jump in the comments below. Give me your thoughts. And if you guys have not already, make sure you hit that like and hit that subscribe button.